Hello and welcome to ETCIO Bfsi Digital Conclave, and this session is about the power of voice. Ask Tia, Eva, Alexa, or Siri about your financial needs. And let me tell you, I have the best speakers from different entire BFSI sector with me here. And let me introduce them to you. My first speaker today for this particular panel discussion is Mr. Ratan Kesh, the head of retail operations and service, Axis Bank. Ratan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
My next speaker is Balakrishna Singhania,
Uh,
EVP at Digital HDFC Life. Balakrishna, good to have you here.
Pleasure, Amol. Thanks.
My next speaker is Suhail Ghai, EVP and CTO Max Life Insurance. Suhail, glad to have you here.
Thank you, Amol. Thank you for having me here.
Fantastic. And my next speaker is Nirlap Ora, Associate Director, Customer Advisory and Customer Services, SAS India. Nirlap, glad to have you also.
Thank you, Amol. It's a pleasure being here with these esteemed panelists.
Great. So to begin with, I have obviously a few common questions for all of you and few specific questions. So I will start with you, Ratan. And if you could give me a perspective on specifically the power of voice. Earlier, the power of voice in the branch was by the, branch people or the branch manager, but now the power of voice has shifted to, Tia, Eva, Alexa, Siri, or God knows whom, because every bank and every insurance company have also started or launched their own robots, and they're believing in RPA solutions or RPA services. So to begin with, Ratan, if you could ask you a simple question, to what extent all these voice assistants like Eva, Tia, Alexa, Siri can go into the financial institutions?
yeah, Amol, in 2018, I think it came in a fairly decent manner when some of the contact centers, the BFSI space started using Alexa.
Correct.
Today, financial sector, wherein call centers are able to use a lot more of voice assistant. Bunch of companies, bunch of fintechs are actually coming up with very powerful solutions. Uh, but I would say that ability of a voice bot to understand Indian languages and more importantly Indian dialects continues to be a challenge. Number one. Number two, to what extent these bots are able to handle interactions continues to be a challenge. So what is currently happening therefore is I think most bots are able to answer in the English or to an extent English, and they're able to understand the intent and navigate the customer to the right agent or to the right node for getting the banking services. So that's what I think broadly I would say currently it is being used as. But I think lots of research is going on. Companies are spending enormous amount of time collecting a lot of data to really augment it and really make it a lot more useful for the clients and deliver superior experience at a better operational efficiency.
Thanks for the opening remarks, Ratan. And I will move the same question to you, Suhail. What is your view? How the voice assistants are actually transforming the BFSI sector, or how far they can go in the BFSI sector?
So, Amol, I think voice is a very important medium. It is one of the three V's of digitization, which is voice, video, and vernacular. And I think it's not just about Alexa, Siri. It's also about any kind of a voice bot. I think, as Ratan said, the ability of some of these bots to at least understand English and understand single intent, that has not been established. And today, I think each one of us in a various areas are trying to look at in areas like renewal calling, where there's a script pattern and bot can almost help you in an assisted journey. That is happening. However, when you're talking about multi-intent and vernacular dialects, I think that is an area which still work is happening. And I think we see in the future it will come in. But again, very excited. I think this is a space which a consumer will interact with the millennial customer, and I think this will become more and more prevalent in the times to come.
Right. So, I mean, we can see the huge interest from the millennials specifically in this segment. In fact, people are also on the WhatsApp sending voice messages than, in fact, texting more. Right. Maybe they're unable to write the correct spelling. That can be a different reason. But the voice is aggressively being used by the millennials. Balkrishna, your view?
My view is as a first step, which we already see, a
Right.
certain segment of society are already starting to use voice for the servicing things. Especially if you have a device at home, you say, "What's my balance? What's my due date? What's this and that?" So a lot of that, I would like to think that some of it is addictive in nature, and part of it, I believe, is in terms of the V-commerce is the what I generally say. That as an industry is slowly starting to pick up on a global basis. So, for example, in US, Alexa, etc., are also integrated with your TV. They are integrated with almost all the devices that you can imagine. So, and you have multiple options, be it Siri, Google Assistants, and all of that, which basically means that customers are already starting to interact with these devices. We personally, for example, I started with streaming music and so on, but now I use it for at least servicing side. And at HDFC Life, we believe that going through that journey of the voice is not just a simple development. The capability development, etc., is ongoing process, and that process we are on it, and that's the way to basically keep yourself updated with how the market is moving, how the customers are moving, and the average profile of customers who are moving to voice, you'll see younger and on the higher income bracket as well. So these are the right segments for us in any case, probably for everybody.
I think different views I'm getting from each one of you, though there is a common thread. Thanks, Balakrishna, for important, insights. Nirlab, what is your view? I'm sure you will have a different perspective because you come from a tech background. But how can actually the voice assistants, make difference in the financial institutions and how far it can go?
Amol, we are witnessing a paradigm shift in terms of humans interact with technology, right? Wake words like OK Google, Hi Siri, these are all the technology lexicons that has now revolutionized the human machine interface. As Balakrishna mentioned, right, the younger millennials are moving towards accessing voice more than other channels. This has been true in the Western world as well. I know in around August 2017 in the Royal Bank of Canada, they actually announced that they could provide the services for customers to pay their bills through Apple Siri. This was just the beginning, and they have just gone up on multiple mundane activities that you can use the voice assistant for. Just to give an example, what's the balance, last 10 transactions, what's my next premium due date, all of this is now being possible. And I would say thanks to artificial intelligence, the conversational AI, and aspects. Having said that, there are challenges, as Ratan mentioned, right? The dialect, the natural language processing, and as Sohail mentioned that with multiple Indian nuances, how a Govind by a guy in North, he would be pronounced as Gobind by somebody else in other part of India. All those nuances will have to be catered to or addressed to. But I would like to make a point that banks and financial institutions are capitalizing now on the consumer and the technological trend that are implementing voice-based conversational AIs to enhance the customer experience.
I think noted points, from each one of you and some, valuable insights that I'm getting.
Amol, I just want to add.
Sure, Ratan, go ahead.
Just want to add a quick one, Amol. You know, today what we are doing, for example,
Right.
if you call up a traditional call center, there will be IVR.
Right.
So you say press 1 for English, 2 for Hindi.
Exactly.
Then you say press 1 for savings, press 2 for current. Then you say press 1 for debit card, press 2 for something. Then when you want to, let's say, generate a green pin, it is buried under multiple layers of the IVR services. With bot, you can actually simply say, I need to generate green pin for my card. Bot is able to understand that intent, and therefore your IVR traversal time comes down by almost 70 to 20 seconds. That's superior CX. And therefore you see that a lot of customers are willing to adopt to IVR services. And once they start adopting, my self-service rate goes up, and therefore customer experience improves, and I also deliver a much more cost-efficient operations.
Right.
So that's clearly happening.
So Ratan, obviously, I mean, nobody will disagree with the fact that, voice is going to add a different layer and an important layer to the businesses, not only in BFSI, but everywhere. But, like you mentioned, in your initial comment about the regional dialects and about the vocabulary and about the pronunciations is absolutely different. In fact, like kahawat hai, ghat ghat par badle pani, kos kos par vani. If you consider that, how are you going to measure the performance of voice assistants in terms of your sales, in terms of your revenue, in terms of your inputs? Mr. Ratan, if you could add something to it.
To me, as I said to begin with, if I'm able to understand the intent correctly, which means understand the language of the customer and therefore understand what the customer is wanting to obtain a service from the bank, and then navigate the customer to the right queue. So, for example, customer said, I want to raise a dispute for my credit card. Instead of pressing all those IVR buttons, the bot is able to understand that customer is talking about a fraud dispute and about credit card. It takes it to the right queue.
Hmm.
So that's number one for me, important element for me to judge. The good news about bot is that bot has an ability to learn from both success and failure.
Right.
Which means if a bot is able to understand the intent correctly, it has learned. If it has not been able to understand the intent correctly, it has learned again.
Right.
And therefore, once it has learned, it never makes a mistake. So three things are happening. Therefore, it is learning in every single interaction.
Okay.
With huge amount of data, dialect, we're able to train it back. That's number one. Number two, once it has learned, there is a consistency in services. That's the second thing that is happening. And the third, we are now getting into a stage wherein I've just introduced last week 16 more services, which will now be able to handle a lot more of API-based services, which will trigger from by the bot, and it will provide services like customer says, I want an account statement. It will go and trigger an account statement, which will go to the registered email ID. Customer says that I want to increase my limit. The customer had a limit upgrade available. So from a 1 lakh to 2 lakh rupees, the bot says that I can increase it to 2 lakh. Would you like me to go ahead? You say yes, it goes and upgrades the limit and gives a confirmation that your limit is upgraded. So these are the new services you are able to add. So that's what I would say we are able to get to.
I think good case studies, in fact, you mentioned, Ratan. Balkrishna, could you give me some case studies from the insurance sector at your company, where actually you are using, voice bots, and how much benefit did you get out of it?
Basically, I think as a part of a broader omni-channel experience to the customers. So we have Google Assistants, we have Alexa, and so on. These have been rolled out in the last 12 months. What we see is customer service is something that is starting quite a bit. So while as a percentage of customer coming to those channels is still small, but these are premium customers in some sense. And what we see is the segment of customer who want answer like now, and without going through press one for this, and within that menus and sub-menus and so on, you say, especially like you authenticate yourself only once every month or so. That's what we have done. So the customers, especially on certain programs where fund value changes very drastically, you want to know your fund value, like in a stock market, just ask. And that's where we see engagement. Historically, you needed to go to a phone call and do a bunch of things. It would take maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Now it takes 3 to 5 seconds. And that kind of engagement from customers is proving definitely adoption side. And what we are also able to do now is if a customer is interacting, at the end of the interaction, I can say, hey, by the way, your premium is due next week. I'm sending you an SMS for that. So I'm able to know the customer the way I want. I want to cross-sell. I want to remind him of the premium. I want to do something else. I'm able to do all of that. Typically, we reserve those things towards the end of the conversation. So I will resolve your query and then say, hey, by the way, this is what I want to tell you. And we have a proper algorithms which picks the right nudge. Obviously, if you overdo it, customer disconnects and switches you off.
I will take one more perspective on insurance from Suhail. So Suhail, Balkrishna spoke about the usage. Can you also add to it and also tell me, what could be the best usage of the voice specifically in your business?
Like as like Balkishan said, all those customer service use cases are very true for any insurance organization. I think another area where we have used voice bots is in the areas of renewals. Ability of a bot to actually first call a customer, reminding of his renewal payment, and then integrating it with an application where the bot actually helps you to do the transaction on the application itself. So that, and this actually, very honestly, is not a replacement; it's a supplement to the renewal calling efforts of the team. And I think these are ways you can supplement your workforce and make sure you are much more productive, and also give a customer a choice when he wants to do the exercise, when he wants to do the transaction. If you are asking me, where can it be used now, Amol, that's it's as we said, there is no end to opportunity here. We all said millennials prefer voice, and more we are realizing that the customer wants us to come to his platform of choice,
Right.
which is something very evident today. We see our WhatsApp transactions have today been more than any bot.
Right.
Each one of any financial institution will tell you, and same is at Max Life, where our WhatsApp transactions are in few months has crossed what the bots would have done in years, and which basically means that more and more you will have to be where your customer is. And if you go by that logic, especially if insurance being a complex product, there are many areas. There's a large area of a whole need analysis. If you look at the entire our cycle,
Right.
the whole analysis where we go and ask you a few questions, and agents ask you a few questions and try the right insurance value for you. Now it can nothing be a set of few questions, and you can know what you need to be covered for. And if you go to this chain, so basically two big roles. One is simplify the product. Many times insurance are complex. How can you simplify the product, whether it is in the onboarding side or even after you buy a policy? In our insurance age, we used to have those large policies which you run in pages. How can you simplify? We have now know your product videos, personalized videos which explain you the product. And similarly on the convenience side, which is more about servicing, how can we add more, right for main balances, and how can we, work with some of these work happening with the Google's assistants of the world, trying to understand multi-intent and dialects to get it better. I think those are two large areas we will probably see the use of voice and bots.
Suhail, you gave a in fact detailed description about how the insurance companies is looking at it. Nirlab, you heard the BFSI players, you heard the view of the bank and the insurance company as well, and they are obviously aggressively adopting voice. How can in terms of leveraging the best benefit of our voice, what is the tech perspective that you would like to give? I mean, how BFSI companies can leverage tech at the most?
So I think I would like to answer this question in two parts. One is what is the benefit to the BFSI organizations, and the second part to it is how does it benefit the end customers.
Okay.
Talking of the BFSI customers, people on the panel mentioned multiple use cases where this can be adopted, or is getting leveraged today. The one perspective I would like to point out is the organizations are planning now. The BFSI organizations are planning to how to either optimize the staff, which were now utilizing it more from a mundane activities, to or how to redeploy them on a more productive work within the organization.
Right.
So that's a very, very important aspect as far as the operational environment is concerned. From an end customer perspective, we are in touch with organizations in India and in the regions around us where the customers have started to experience a better service from a perspective like a credit card company. When an end customer wanted to cancel his credit card or had an issue with a credit card or a premium that he had to pay during a holiday season, it used to take minutes and minutes to get into the right person, and sometimes that never used to happen. But with this voice assistant, voice bot technology in place, and getting more and more embedded into the core applications of insurance and banking environment, I think this is going to improve immensely how the customer feels he is being taken care of. The only perspective I want to bring is most of these organizations who have been slightly successful ahead of us, if I may say, in the Indian context, have used analytics in a big way and not just acquiring kind of voice bot services. The advantage here is that these organizations wanted to provide not just a software on the other side to the end customer, but like a human and a personal touch, which is very important in wherever we go, whatever advancement we do. We in India, customer centricity and a personal touch is of paramount importance.
I will add a
Sure,
point. What
sure,
Ashwin
Suhail.
said, I think one of the other areas where we're seeing a power of voice is ability to run analytics, speech analytics. So we've been with us in a planning to right now work with a startup, which is basically trying to see the voice, the patterns when somebody is interacting either with a bot, to understand when the customer is not getting an answer, when it's becoming uncomfortable, and based on that you can have an intervention of a human being interacting in the same conversation. So I think a lot about the customer satisfaction, the customer's what he's feeling. That is another area where you can actually run intelligence on speech, and you can actually decipher what your customer is feeling and where to intervene.
Noted, Sahil.
I like to
Yes,
share an example,
yeah,
Amol.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
This is something that we've experienced and we are working very closely. It's in the currently in the implementation phase. We
Right.
have Allianz in Germany who
Okay,
are actually using the voice analytics in a very unique way. What they call is intelligent customer conversation or customer interaction in real time. As soon as a customer calls a customer service representative, right, this voice that's converted into text on a real time basis, on the back end, NLP, AI, machine learning models are running to provide the agent, the customer call service agent, the ability to come up with the next best question or a next best action for the customer who is on the call. And this is happening on all on real time basis. What does this do is they actually, enhances the customer interaction or the conversation the agent is doing, and it for the end customer it really benefits on what a seamless experience he or she would get. This actually has led to some very good marketing returns as well to Allianz in Germany.
okay. I think Ratan, you wanted to add something, right?
Yeah, so I was going to add what Nirlap has said. So you asked about the tech stack. So in my views, the whole thing can be broken into 3 or 4 tech enablement which should come together to deliver a superior CX, and also, as Nirlap mentioned about the marketing benefits or the sales benefits. So number one is you got to have the right APIs available for you to fetch it, and therefore you need to have a good knowledge portal. And for bot to function well, you got to have that very strong, powerful knowledge portal, which will have to keep evolving. That's one part of it. Second, I think very important is the ability to have a service data lake, wherein all the information of success, failure, and whatever information that is happening in your within an external ecosystem should get reside, so that bot is able to fetch information from there and guide the agent. And the third one, which is speech to text and the real-time speech analytics, which will actually nudge the agent to say, hey, the call is not going well, and actually decide probably to divert the call to a subject matter expert,
Right.
or tell the agent saying that, the call has done very well. By the way, now the customer is delighted. You seem to have a product to offer. Just offer him a Vistara credit card.
Okay.
So these are the kind of stuff that are happening. So the tech stack has to really come together to deliver the superior CX and also marketing returns.
Okay. So, Balkrishna, I have an important question. As of now, we are talking more about the customer service where the bots can, create a revolution, or it can give you a revolutionary experience. What are the other areas? Because you're in insurance, and obviously all the BFSI companies, go through a lot of compliance issues, regulatory issues, operational issues. How bot can be a beneficial there?
So actually, we also use bots to make outbound calling, for example, be it for payment reminders, be it for if I have a cold lead and I'm not sure if it is my most valuable lead and I don't have enough people in my call center, I have a bot call you and will converse with you. And if the NLP behind that bot says, okay, this customer really seems to be interested, that call quickly get transferred to a real call center, which means that I'm able to efficiently manage that operations. But in a lot of cases, I just have to remind, by the way, your payment is due next week. I'm sending you an SMS and an email also, or things like that. The next stage for us in real sense is a voice buying journey. That obviously is a complicated task simply because unlike a lot of other products, say a banking product where I want to open a simple savings account or something else, the general awareness about what does an insurance product mean, what does the cover come with, what does it not come with, what are the
Right.
savings options, customers don't necessarily fully understand.
Right.
So given those kind of challenges, there are different options that we are experimenting with, and we keep experimenting with those in terms of being it available to our customers, the buying options. But one of the things we are also experimenting, for example, is which of these can I give it to my staff to fill up the form from the customer? So, for example, some of these forms are lengthy. You have to write your name 7 times, and customer would probably write it twice and say, "You fill it up to our sales." Now, these are all online forms, and if I make it voice enabled, that staff has to type less, for example. So there are 50 or 100 different kind of applications. Once you develop the capability, the beauty is once I have a voice to text capabilities and text to voice capabilities, and couple it with the conversational AI where I can bring the intelligence, I can design many of these systems in software term with a click of button. It's not a click of button, but it's still a whole lot of reusable components that I can use here. So NLP engine, for example, is the core from an intelligence perspective. It, whether it's a WhatsApp bot, whether we have so-called avatars, which is a reformed version of a voice bot, whether it is a WhatsApp, any of these, the core NLP engine for us is same, which means that doesn't matter which channel do you come and interact, you will get a similar and consistent response from our side. Now, all of this also means that I'm reusing these components and I'm able to make new applications much faster because of that.
True, Balkrishna. I think the power of voice is so dominant that the time is just flying. Didn't even realize, it's just more than 40 minutes. But I have one important question for each one of you. And, I will start with you, Nirlap. The question is, what is the future? Because we are discussing power of voice and everybody agrees to this fact that it is going to be the next, big thing in the BFSI ecosystem. So, Nirlap, the question is, what is the future of voice in the BFSI sector going ahead? How do you see power of voice taking over the BFSI sector maybe in next 2 to 3 years?
Power of voice is here to stay, Amol, and it is going to increase the penetration in a big way.
Right.
We talked about customer experience in enhancement, but I think what organizations are now starting to do, and we are slowly seeing those experiences in the Indian context as well, is they're using voice now for preventing customer attrition or even building more competitive offerings. I'll just give you an example or two that I'm working on today. Right now, organizations are understanding collecting the voice data by the end customer may have complaints, they may have called the call center or through web chats, right? They would have thought about some kind of issue that they may have on the services that the financial company is offering. Now the financial companies are actually converting or merging the voice as well as the web chat and other contextual data to understand where the gap is in their product and kind of improve it so that there is less customer attrition. Similarly, more competitive offerings, more often than not, if a customer is moving from an existing product to a competitive product in some form and shape, he would have provided his reason indirectly or directly sometimes, either to the call center or through an email or through a web chat to the financial company, financial organization. I think time has come to leverage this data, understand what has been, missing, if I may say, or what can be improved in the product offerings of whether it's an insurance, financial service, or a banking product, and use that technology backed with AI, ML, NLP to enhance the product offering. These are some of the, apart from, hyper personalization, some of the aspects that I see. This is where the trend is going to move in a significantly rapid manner.
Okay, valid points. Nirlab, I will come to you, Ratan. And obviously the partly question is what is the future of power of voice at your bank? But more importantly, my question to you, Ratan, is also this: is what would happen to human agents? What would happen to your customer service team, which is working behind IVR now? Do we still require them going ahead if the power of voice is going to, cover a lot of things?
The truth is that while we are all excited and really it's giving some very early returns and early wins, the truth is that a bot's ability to handle conflicts, interactions which are more interactive, that customers would have a dispute and customer wants to have a conversation, that ability is going to take long time, frankly.
Okay.
So what we got to do is therefore use the bot for most often simpler services, and then very smartly drop it to an agent. And therefore, in how we define it as humanoid and human being will work side by side and not replace one versus another one. So human and humanoid will work together to deliver a superior CX. So as customer, you want to come for simple queries, bot will answer. And then since you have been answered very, very quickly, we will drop it to an agent to make a product offer to you or answer, ask you anything more that you can do. And for complex queries, you will still have to drop it to an agent.
Right.
So that's one thing that will happen. The second, which is very, very important, which is going to happen, as Nilap mentioned, is that all these various services, whether it is WhatsApp bot, whether it is chat bot, email bot, voice bot, all of this will converge eventually. And voice bot will be one of the services that you will offer. And all the bot services will eventually be combined on the go for the client. So you are on the mobile phone or you are on your laptop or an iPad, anywhere, anytime, we should be able to offer services. And going back to what Sohail said in the beginning, that 3V power will eventually come. You can even offer, let's say, voice, video, and voice-based offer. So I guess that I think this will coexist. It is going to take a lot of time to really replace a human being. More importantly, the human being's skill will need to be upgraded because they will now handle more complex queries instead of simple queries. So we are working heavily in terms of really upgrading the skill set to really provide superior services and also deliver value to the customer.
Thanks, Ratan. Suhail, I want an insurance perspective, and if I ask you, directly, will voice bots or will the power of voice replace the agents in insurance segment?
So Amol, I think as Ratan said, I think insurance is a complex product. It is more a commitment for future, and I think in this area, the bots and the voice will supplement an agent. I think what I see is that a parts of the journey, which is the initial need analysis, explaining the features of the product, like Balkrishnan said. I think those are the kind of things which a bot will do more and more, and get to a point from where we say that it's almost like a lead. And I think then, depending on the product category, is where then agent will come in. For a complex product category, an agent will have to come in and to close the sales. In a simple category, probably you can go to a self-service option. However, I don't see it replacing agents. Yes, it can really, as insurance penetration increases in the country, we get into the hinterland. Not everywhere we will have a branch. Not everywhere we will have an insurance agent. And I think at those places, it can be a great conversation starter, pitching a complex product, explaining the features, and getting up to a point where a customer is thinking of buying it. And then then depending on the product category, we'll pick it up. I think that's my doing. But in servicing, I see servicing it playing a larger part. And as Ratan said, simple servicing transactions, inquiries can happen and can happen by the voice bots. But however, the complex queries will always remain, and I believe you would need a human interaction for that.
Right. So Balkrishna, last point here, and your perspective, how do you see this mix going ahead in the insurance, sector using power of, voice also with the physical offline agents? And, how do you see what kind of changes also do you see in next 2 to 3 years, specifically in insurance segment with power of voice?
Basically, the power of voice is part of a broader, if you want to think AI, ML, and that kind of a transformation itself. Now, one way of looking at it is in the sales process. It is a assistant that my sales staff can also use in some sense. So you have a certain level of query. The customer needs real person's help. There is a choice that the customer has in order to say, "Hey, I want to talk to a in person." So that's one way of looking at the whole thing, and it gives the choice to the customer to say, I will interact to the extent I want to interact. And today customers are a lot more impatient, which means if it's a simple query, the machine does the job far better, far quicker than a human being, because I need to understand everything and so on. But you say my policy number is this, and I don't have to, like a human being will listen to it, type it on a machine, and then get an answer here. The machine not only takes, let's say, your customer ID number or something else, does a bunch of things and answers it quickly. And if authentication was done beforehand, it becomes all the more simple. Now that's how the world is slowly moving towards. But the option of real human being will always be there in terms of complicated queries, or if you have an issue with the system or something else is going wrong. And also in terms of the voice as a commerce, not just limited to say banking, that is something that the customer has to start becoming comfortable. Am I okay to make a payment, for example? Am I okay to give you a credit card over a voice where I don't know whom I'm going to? Like, everything takes a transition, and we will see that transition. And when it becomes a cross-industry transition, customer will become a lot more comfortable. And I think organizations and people who embark on that journey will not only generate a lot of data, where, like I think Nilap said, or somebody said, you generate the data on when the bot was working, when did the bot not work. In either case, you are generating the data. We are making a lot of effort to understand the accents in different, same, even if it's English or Hindi, the two most popular language, how you see a person in North India speak versus a person in South India speak, they are very, very different. And being able to understand that requires so-called model training. And all of this is a journey, it's not a destination. And as we launch one product, I'm pretty sure somebody will say, hey, I want accuracy to go further few notches up. And when you go there, somebody will say, hey, competition is also coming here. I want you to maintain that competitive advantage and move a couple more notches up, and so on. So that's how this entire thing is going to play. And at the end of the day, technology, I always like to think, is an enabler for our industry. It is not the thing. The thing still remains with the people, me able to understand what you really need. So,
Okay.
So, 30 seconds comment, Amol.
Sure.
Whatever we say, frankly, NLP, natural language processing, is not easy,
Right.
especially in India. I mean, Bengali सब कुछ खाते हैं, and whereas Hindi वालों खाते हैं पीते दोनों है. And then the young millennial, they write BRB. I read it as branch banking, but they actually say be right back. So it's going to take a lot of time, frankly, in India,
Right.
and therefore it is going to be evolving every single day. So let's not be too optimistic. Yes, we should remain optimistic to the extent that yes, we should make it perfecting the model,
Right.
but it's going to take time for sure.
Right. I think that's valid points from, I think, each one of you. And ultimately, the goal should be, and I think you have already that goal, to offer a better and the better service, offer a customer delight to the customers. I think that is more important. And I think technology is going to be a tool, but the fundamentals will never change. Ultimately, the customer wants all his issues to be resolved instantly and immediately. Great. It was, pleasure listening to all of you. And thank you so much for taking part into ETCIO BFSI Digital Conclave and sharing your views. Thank you so much, Suhail, Nirlap, Balkrishna, and Ratan for taking part into the ETCIO conclave. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. It was a
Thanks
pleasure.
for having me.